This video is for practitioners who are probably already a little bit familiar with Theom or have gotten their toes in the water to some degree. But today I'm going to be walking you through exactly what our test offers, how that differs from other tests on the market, be that other metabolite tests or DNA tests, and then show you some pretty cool stuff that we do that I don't think anybody else on the market is currently doing, specifically the digital twinning to create personalized protocols for individuals. So this is a very practical test that you can show your patients where their health score is. You personally can take a deep dive into their metabolic profile, and we train you on how to do that. And it gives a very practical protocol on stuff that we don't sell. So we don't sell any supplements or interventions, so all the referral goes back to you, the practitioner. So before we get into it, I'm just going to give you a quick introduction on myself so you know who this guy on the screen is. So I actually got started in the wellness space quite a while ago when my brother was diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer. And I'm not going to go too much into the journey on this video, but it's given me an intimacy with that process that people go through, trying to find things that were helpful for him. And it's really gifted me with a passion to try to help others in a similar situation, whether that's cancer or something else. How can we support the body and really give it something that's going to be massively beneficial? Currently, I'm the CEO at Theriome. I do own two other companies, which you might know me for, but those are pretty much self-running. I spend a lot of my time with Theriome at this point. My goal in life is to reduce suffering in the world through precise, non-toxic medicine. And I'm a family guy, so my wife and I have 4 kids, which is crazy and fun and wild, but it's a good time. So before we get started with what this test is, I want to show you this. What is the process for actually working with Theriome? Because I am going to try to sell you at the end of the call. Just please know that, I only want you to do this if you think it's going to be really impactful, not only for you, but your patients, and is going to be a benefit to your business. So this is the process in starting with Theriome. The first step is train. So you're here. We call this a training. It's not a deep dive into metabolomics. And the reason for that is because this is intended to give you enough information to make a purchase. We're not trying to go through everything at this point, because what we find is that if we give people a ton of information up front, it can be a little bit of paralysis by analysis. Whereas if they just start working with some real life data from patients, from themselves, from their spouse, whoever, they're actually much more likely to make progress and actually much more likely to step through with this. So we find that it's a good process to, hey, here's kind of the basics of what we do. Then make a purchase that's relatively minimal, start to work with real data. And then once you get those tests and you get those reports, we go to step 3, which is hands-on training. And we give you in-depth hands-on training, one-on-one, going through the reports with you, making sure that you're intimately aware of how the report works, how it applies to your patients, etc. Step 4 is grow. So the better you do, the better we do. So we do provide ongoing support to ensure that you have growth, that you have the sales materials that you need to be able to educate materials. And we give deeper education into the omics sciences, such as our live events, our monthly calls, our roundtables, etc. So in this presentation, I'm going to show you a few things. First of all, we're going to show you how our test can provide identification of root cause and pathway dysfunctions. Then how we use AI to personalize protocols and create targeted protocols. And then how we can do early detection far before symptomology, so identifying pathway dysfunctions and the various things that I'll get into it in a second. And then I'm also going to show you how you can consolidate over 9 panels into a single test, which, spoiler alert, is ours. So you in 60 minutes will have saved a lot of money and made a lot of happy, healthy patients. So the first question, though, is why would we profile the metabolism? Why would we test the metabolism? There's a lot of different things that you can test, a lot of different panels that you can pull on a person. But let me start from the top. So what makes up a person? A person is derived from atom, molecule, macromolecule, cell, tissue, organ to create the organism. So all these components are in sequence to create the human. The advantage of looking at the molecular human is that it helps us to identify what is going to happen upstream before symptoms appear. So if we're taking a look at the molecule, and I'm going to get into this deeper, but that allows us to identify what is then going to happen to the cell, the tissue, the organ, the organism. And the molecules are very dynamic, more actionable, and responsive to interventions that we provide. So then the next question is, well, within the molecular human, there are different systems that you could potentially use. There's the genome, the transcriptome, like epigenetics. There's proteins that you could panel. There's the microbiome. There's the metabolism. Why would you focus on the metabolism? Well, that's a great question. The reason is because the metabolism is the most responsive to changes from lifestyle factors. So what that means, for good or for bad, when you put an intervention into somebody's life, you'll first see it reflected in the metabolism. So if they're eating cheeseburgers, if they're meditating, taking supplements, drinking too much caffeine, what drugs they're taking, etc., that is all reflected in the metabolism, which has upstream effects. So this creates the best prediction at how metabolic changes will actually affect the rest of the body. So these little molecules are a great viewpoint into the state of one's current health. So to give some clarifying context, I think genetics is great. I think you should do genetic testing, but I think it's good to have a point of contrast and what is the difference between these things. So as you know, genetics make up a certain portion of your overall health, but it's actually the minority of it. The vast majority is the lifestyle factors that somebody carries. So you could have genetic markers for endurance sports and being a terrific athlete, but be 500 pounds overweight. So it's not actually giving you an accurate picture of that person's current health state. It's just showing you the map of what could be. Whereas the metabolism is where they currently sit on that map. So it's giving us a good detail of where they currently are. So this creates, in my opinion, a more accurate picture of their current health and potential disease states, potential dysfunctions. So let me get into what our test offers. So we analyze 126 biomarkers. We profile 68% of known human metabolism. We benchmark your data against 480 different disease profiles. We look at nutrient deficiencies and environmental toxicities, and then we wrap that all up with creating a customized protocol for the individual that's going to be what we believe is the most impactful for them. And I'm going to unpack all this further. But just real quick, our test doesn't require a lab draw, which is really wonderful. This is called frictionless sample collection. And so using a fingerprint prick, the patient can actually self-administer the test. They can do it right in the clinic too. But all they need is a finger prick. They send it to our laboratory, and then we produce the results. So you don't need to do a lab draw, which is absolutely wonderful. So once you do this finger prick sample collection, what happens? Well, that sample card goes back to our laboratory. It takes 2 weeks to get the health report. In that health report, you'll find a simple translation the patient can follow, enough depth for practitioners as well, so they can do a deep dive into their patient if they want to, or they can follow the more simple portions of it. We are analyzing 68% of metabolism. I'll unpack that a little bit because it's like, well, why not 100%? It's actually a lot. And then personalized protocols using the digital twinning technology. They get a consult with a PhD, or you as a physician can do that consult, or you and the patient. They get health scores across 12 key health domains, and then they get a disease signature list. So first of all, we monitor 68% of known human metabolism. So on the left side here, you're going to see the many colors on the chart. These are the known human metabolic pathways. Down on the left-hand side, you're going to see in red what pathways you could monitor if you combined 6 different lab draws and did 6 different metabolic tests. If you combined all of those things and you did 6 different lab draws, consolidated it into a report, you would get approximately 19% coverage. Now with our test, we're actually getting 68% coverage. We monitor 126 sentinel metabolites with at least 2 metabolites per pathway, so we get a really good understanding of what is happening at the pathway level. And really the power behind us is not just the metabolites that are being assessed, but the pathways that they impact. And these are the 126 metabolites that we do analyze. And so these are also the traditional panels that we encompass. So energy metabolism panel, an organic acids test, etc. The ones that are fully encompassed, we fully encompass. The ones that are partly sticking out, we encompass a good portion of those. So there's 3 primary components in our report. First is the 12 key health domains, which will have these nice bar charts that are a very easy look at to understand what is the health score of this individual. And this can also serve as a global profiling. So in the case that you're trying to find a place to target, or a certain area that you want to focus in on, or the person is worried about inflammation, but you want to see how inflammation actually is. This can serve as a global profiling to understand where to probe deeper. So this can be really helpful from that standpoint. We have a number of physicians that is kind of their first line test. They use it as a global profiling. You can use it for a lot of other stuff too. But that way they kind of get a vantage point on where this person is suffering a little bit and where they can provide the best support. Then the second section would be the personalized protocols that are very detailed, very granular that go into supplements, lifestyle factors, etc. And then we have the disease signature list that gets deeper into what might be going on in this person. And we're going to get into these more now. So in the 12 key health domains, we have aging, nutrition, inflammation, mitochondria, cardiovascular, reproductive, liver, gut, neurocognitive, integumentary, which is skin, hair, and nails, and environmental, toxicity, and mutational load. So these are the 12 key health domains that we monitor that are statistically validated. And then how do we produce these personalized protocols, though? I kind of brushed over that portion real quick because people get that. But the protocols is how do you with monitoring 68% of the metabolism, there's so much data that you're pulling in. So how do you know what is going to be the best thing for this person? So now as the amount of data is growing that we can collect, and our mission at Theom is not only to do the metabolism, but also the microbiome, the proteome, the transcriptome, and the genome. And so once we get to that point, which will be approximately 2 to 3 years to have all of those done, and that'll map out the human blueprint, so to speak, that's a lot of data. And not to mention that we're going to be growing like this current metabolomic panel. It's 126 metabolites right now, but our next iteration is actually over 380. So you're getting more and more data. So we need to use supercomputers and AIs that can help us to do pattern recognition coupled with a PhD, who also does a review, to identify the best protocol for this person. And so the AI can do this pattern recognition at a rate that would take a human very, very long to get an understanding on what's going on. So the first thing we do is we create a digital replica of the person based on their biological data. And then we've mined literature for over 1,300 interventions. That means that we've gone into the literature to find what we think are the most impactful, non-invasive interventions possible. And then we mine them to understand what are their impact on metabolic profiles. And so we banked all these. And we're growing this as rapidly as we can. We want to have more and more and more in here, eventually including ideally everything in medicine, right? But that'll take a long time. But right now, it primarily includes therapeutics, supplements, diet, lifestyle, sleep hygiene, equipment, and more. Then we get into simulating each of these interventions 1,000 times. So we have 1,300 interventions. We simulate each one 1,000 times. We vary the time of day, the dose, the frequency, the stack that is used to get a very granular protocol that is totally customized to the individual. So we're identifying the protocol most likely to resolve dysfunctional pathways, lower disease signatures, and restore homeostasis. And then from there, we produce a personalized protocol, none of which we make money or sell. When pertinent, we refer back to the practitioner. The disease signature list can be really helpful. So we are not a diagnostic tool. This is not a diagnosis. It doesn't mean that you do or do not have something. Coincidentally, Dr. Jasby does have a lot of research on early detection, but using more or less the same materials and methods, but that's just his published research. Diseases essentially leave a metabolic signature or fingerprint on the metabolism, which is unique in its makeup. So it's the expression of certain metabolites or metabolites in a very specific range, and the combination of those that create a disease signature. So we've banked over 480 of these different disease profiles with these unique disease signatures. And then we take the person's biological data and we overlay it with that disease signature list. And what we're trying to do is identify, does this person match with any of these disease signatures? So what you'll find is stage 1 breast cancer. There might be an 11% match, Alzheimer's, 82% match, etc. And this is helpful information for a practitioner to construct a narrative on what might be going on. Also an additional aid to the global profiling perspective if that's what you're in here for. So there's a lot of good use cases for our analysis. The big thing I would say is people who have chronic disease, that are trying to kind of start with a basic protocol of what do I do. So if we can address a lot of the nutritional deficiencies, the environmental toxicities, at least mitigate those, we can give the person a really solid foundation for you as a physician to go and do deeper work from there. And it's all based on objective third-party data, and we have no bias because we don't make any money on the interventions. So that can be a really good place to start for people with chronic disease that are trying to get a foundation going. The second area I would say is people who are not feeling well, but they just don't know what the cause is. They don't have a diagnosis. The physicians might be struggling with figuring out a diagnosis. Well, I can't promise that we're going to figure out exactly what is going on with this person, and we're not a diagnostic tool anyway. I can tell you that we can address the dysfunctional pathways by recommending supplements and lifestyle interventions for this person to help them get that base and that more likely to create homeostasis in that person. The third thing that we often see is athletes, biohackers, people into preventative medicine. While this is a smaller portion of it, that's a very big and growing thing. People interested in longevity. How can I be as healthy as possible? That would be kind of the camp I'm in, right? I want to make sure that my mind is sharp, that I have lots of energy so I can do really good work, so I can enjoy my kids, so I can enjoy my business, etc. And so it can be really impactful for those three primary areas. But I have a list here of some use cases. So diabetes, cardiovascular health, mental health, nutritional deficiencies, inflammation, toxin exposures, methylation status, gut health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you onboard this test as a physician? I alluded to it earlier, but there is a 4-step process. First is train, which is where you're at right now, but this is really just intended to give you enough information to pique your interest, so to speak. Again, a lot of people, if we give a ton of information up front, they just don't get started because it's like, hey, here's 3 hours of education, and then once you take that education, come back to us. And it's like people put things off, right? We're all busy. We have things to do. So what I'm trying to do is trying to convince you of the merits of this, pique your interest, and say, yeah, I think that is something I want to look into a little bit further and see if that's going to be good for my patients. By the way, we have a money-back guarantee. So if you decide that you want to try this, you can even just get one test kit. And if you don't like it, just send it back for a full refund. It's not a problem. But the next step is buy, and I'm going to get into what that looks like. And then step 3 is hands-on. So the hands-on portion, essentially so you're going to get anywhere from 1 to 20 tests, whatever you want. It doesn't matter. You get it on practitioner pricing too. You just have to email me to get access to that pricing. But you get your report back with the people that you ran that trial on. Could be yourself, your spouse, etc. And then we train you on those actual reports so that you have real life data to go off of. In addition to that, we can provide supplemental training. We do live events, and we have a monthly roundtable call for physicians as well. And then step 4, again, is grow. So that's just where we try to support you. But we're not just some guys with a lab. You know, we actually are very well published. Our most recent publication being in Nature Communications, which is a very high impact journal. So we have a lot of publications on this stuff. And here's some of our clients, some people that we love to work with. You know, a lot of people find it useful for the patients and expanding what they're able to do. This is the team. It's basically me. More or less just a layperson with a bunch of PhDs, while me and Amy, she's a nurse though, so I have the least education in all this, but it's wonderful to be surrounded by such brilliant people. Really, all of these people are absolutely brilliant in what they do as scientists. So as far as getting started with this, the first step, so like I said, I want to get you to buy. So this is my call to action where I'm saying like, hey, if this has piqued your interest and you think this is something that could be impactful for your patients, wouldn't it be worth the few $100 to try it out? And also that's risk-free because if you don't like it, you can just get a full refund. It's open for 60 days, which is way more time than you need to identify if it's going to be useful for you or not. Because 60 days, all right, we ship it out, a couple days. You take the test, ship it back. So you're like 3 weeks in and you already have everything. And then you have another 5 weeks to decide if it's going to be something you actually utilize in your clinic. And that's just on one test kit. You can refund any test kit you ever buy from us. But yeah, if you want to get started on the practitioner pricing and would like to see what that pricing is, just send me an email to micah@therio.me and I will get you started on the practitioner program. I hope this was helpful for you, just to give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain as to what we offer. We also do have a sample report available. If you go to our website at the top bar, you can click through that to put in your email and get a free sample report, free book, and some other things that might be helpful materials for you. But yeah, this is an introduction to Theriome, so hope it was helpful.